So it's been almost 10 years, a decade, since Mad Max launched in 2015, and of course I've heard many things about it since that time, and have wanted to play it, but it hasn't really been a big priority, clearly. I also haven't seen any of the Mad Max films, whether they be the early ones or the reboots I guess you could say, but I know they don't want to be labelled as that. But again, they've also been on my list to watch, so this was my first look and impression of anything Mad Max, and I am now in the mood to finally watch Fury Road. And just to mention, and I didn't know this before, was that the game isn't set on any particular film. They just used the same universe and all the type of stuff you'd find in the film and made a fun game out of it. And I'm sure it was a big deal when the game actually did first come out, because of course it was a couple months after the Fury Road film came out, so it had all the eyes on it and it was a big deal. So if you don't know, if you haven't played the game or watched any of the films, Mad Max follows this action-adventure style game in this massive open world, and similar to I guess Borderlands or Fallout, where the whole world is set in this post-apocalyptic setting. And if I wanted to truly simplify the actual plot of the game, is how you just build a really strong car. That is the most simple way I can explain it. Of course I will go into more detail, but if I had to say that is basically what sums up the game. And a big part of the game and what sort of makes it unique is the gameplay and this whole vehicle combat system. And as you play the game, the more you upgrade your vehicle and the more fun you can have basically. And it just becomes crazier and crazier, just like the films. And they did do so well at creating that atmosphere and bringing it to life. Because if you take a quick glimpse at the world, you may think it's very plain, basic, boring due to the very open and sparse areas and the same sort of colour tone throughout it all. But it's more so the way you play it and explore this world as you try and take over each section, with most of it being done by just you and the character of Max independently. And just traversing the world is so easy with how much space there is to speed around in your vehicle, and even better of course if you have speed upgrades like boosts. And it can tank almost everything, and especially as you play more, becoming stronger as you go. It also means that it's not long until you come across a camp or a series of enemies trying to stop you in their vehicles. So it makes for this giant fun playground of vehicle combat. And if anything, it is one of the best worlds specifically built for vehicle combat and traversing by far, which is what makes it so good in the end. And of course, if that style of gameplay isn't your thing, then yes, the world and more so the game itself won't be for you, unfortunately. And as I said, you're always uncovering enemy bases, and as well as the vehicle combat, in terms of what Max uses mostly, is his fists in melee combat. It seems like they wanted the firearms and the tools and the explosives to mainly be on the magnum opus, which is the name of the car. So it's more simple like this, but it's also very fun to do, I think. And the title of the game truly comes out where he unleashes all of his anger into beating up enemies. The more combos and chain strikes you get in fighting, Max's Fury Rage will build up and allow you to have a massive buff in strength and speed, as well as counter-attacking and dodging, with a great set of animations in the finishes and the certain moves you do. It would be cool if they added a few more, just a bit more variety in there. And some could call it just button mashing, but the overall feeling of this free flow combat system is great. Not just the movement feeling smooth like the Batman Arkham games, but also the sound effects of each individual punch, just sort of emphasising the brutality of it all and Max's unstoppable strength. Also upgrading Max's gameplay with skills, so putting a bit into each section, like its health, knuckle dusters, armour, ammo capacity, melee durability, also skills like the finishing moves and their parries and counters. And then going back to the vehicle, the upgrade system for that, you basically collect scrap and loot to then craft parts for your vehicle, as well as you pushing through the story as some extra requirements. And you spend a lot of time customizing exactly how you like it, making it so unique to you and to fit each player's style. Building up a bit of everything like the speed, the acceleration, the boost, the defenses, the handling, the armour, etc. It's very detailed, as expected, where this is basically the heart of the game that is Mad Max. And I do feel like the game was sort of overlooked because of that year of 2015 where a bunch of good games came out. And I always thought it was a massive game, and it is quite big, but compared to the other games that year, it didn't actually have the biggest success when it did first come out. And a lot of that was because of the story story, which I'll get into, and that sort of took up most of the criticism, and especially coming off right from the film, so that comparison of the story is definitely going to come up right away, and it did, and unfortunately a lot of people don't like the story. And then that also compared with all the other games that came out that year, like Fallout 4, The Witcher 3 was a massive one, Metal Gear Solid, Batman Arkham Knight of course, and that's just to name a few. I mean, there's so many that year. So yeah, the game isn't actually as big and as praised as I thought it was. But now, 10 years later, just looking at it as a whole, it's actually quite underrated. And I think a lot of people can agree with that. And there's not many games that sort of follow this style. It's quite a niche and unique style. So it is sort of, in a way, a hidden gem, but quite a big hidden gem, because I know it's popular, but it could have been a lot bigger. But it seems like the Avalanche Studios, they do tend to follow that sort of style with all their games. And I remembered that I did actually play Just Cause 3, and that was great. And that was quite a while ago when I played Just Cause. So me coming back, many years later to Avalanche Studios and checking out Mad Max, it's great. I mean, I will talk about the story, but I definitely feel the gameplay, and as I've already mentioned, is the biggest part of this game and what makes it so good. And from what I heard, it's similar to the film as well, where it has great action, but the actual story isn't anything to be excited for. So there's some really cool moments in the story, but nothing crazy, and you don't remember this game from the plot of it. So to keep it fairly simple, the actual plot of the game follows of course Mad Max, but at the start of the game he is captured by Scrotus, which is basically a war group, and that's the warlord, and they sort of run the whole wasteland. And they take everything from him, like his car, and then basically leave him in this whole wasteland. So then at the start of the game you wake up and then you team up with Chum Bucket, and he's like your sidekick, pretty much through the whole entire game, but that's the first person you meet, and they team up together, and then that's when they start creating the magnum opus. And again, and I see this with a lot of the games that I do review, especially some of the recent ones where the story isn't the main focus, and that is when it does follow that revenge story and that revenge plot. So it does focus on that revenge and the survival aspect, and the main goal is to take over the whole wasteland and just stop the warlord. But also in the middle of it, it does, dive into deeper topics, and he does have that sort of trauma from the death of his family and the stuff from the past. So that is what runs throughout the whole story and what keeps him going, and the sort of meaning behind it. In terms of what actually happens, there's nothing really exciting in terms of the story, and you don't fully connect with it. I mean, at least I didn't, and I think a lot of people can agree. Comment down below if you did genuinely enjoy this story, because for me and many others, the main aspect is the gameplay and is what made me want to play the game, and also kept me playing the game, rather than, I think from early on I realised the story isn't going to be great, and it just serves as that foundation and the background to basically what you actually do in the game. But like I said, that's what I think. Comment down below what you thought of this story. And as I mentioned earlier, with this whole niche concept of a game and the gameplay style it does follow, they did that perfect. I mean, they did what they want to do. So from the start, if you like that style and that genre, then you're going to love it. And there's not many games that do it similar. So I had a lot of fun playing this game. Let me know what you thought of it, and I think that's where I end my review of Mad Max in 2024. It's definitely worth your money if you agree with all the stuff I said in this video. Not everything, but hopefully you've got a good idea of what you think of it now. And I definitely recommend it. It for sure holds up, and that's not even just with what I said, but also the visuals as well. I mean, the graphics are great for definitely a 10-year-old game, and that goes the exact same with a lot of the games from 2015. I don't know what it was with that year, but The Witcher 3 looks amazing, the same with Batman Arkham, and even with this, I mean, the world isn't so diverse, and there's not a lot to sort of go off with the visuals, but even though a lot of it is similar, and it's in a way a basic landscape, it still looks visually amazing. If you did enjoy this video, then let me know by tapping that like button down below, and if you enjoyed single player and also multiplayer games as well, then that's what this channel does focus on. I have various playlists on a selection of games, so you can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. If you'd like to support me any further by becoming a member at either level 1 or 2 to gain access to various perks, then tap the join button below. Thank you all for the support and watching until the very end, and that was Mad Max in 2024, and bye bye.